Welcome to Lead for Good, a podcast for nonprofit leaders of all titles and all experience levels. This is a show where the audience will meet and get to know top nonprofit leaders. Together, we will take a deep dive into nonprofit leadership, endeavoring to uncover and unpack the most important characteristics, traits, strategies, and actions of successful nonprofit leaders. Through this journey together, we desire to help you, the nonprofit leader, grow your knowledge and capabilities to lead for good. We want you to achieve your full potential as leaders in the sector. So, welcome to the conversation. We're glad you joined us today. Without further delay, let's join our host, Chris Looney, as he interviews yet another extraordinary leader who is truly leading for good. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining the show. Today on Lead for Good, we are joined by Lacey Huszcza, President and CEO of the Richmond Symphony. Lacey is a seasoned nonprofit executive and arts leader who brings a rare combination of strategic discipline and deep respect for the creative process. And under her leadership, the Richmond Symphony has continued to strengthen its artistic excellence while expanding its community relevance, financial sustainability, and organizational alignment. Lacey's work sits squarely at the intersection of art and business, where creativity, stewardship, and leadership must coexist. And her perspective offers valuable lessons for any leader, guiding talented professionals whose work is both mission-driven and deeply personal. I know this is going to be a really fun and informative session, so let's jump in. Welcome to the show, Lacey. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. It's my pleasure. I love connecting with my fellow nonprofit leaders and always like talking with you. So happy to be here.
Thank you. Well, the feeling is mutual. And before we dive deeply into the topic of leadership at that intersection of art and business, let's learn a little more about you and your leadership journey. So if you don't mind, please start by telling us a little bit about how you became the leader you are today.
Absolutely, yes. So I have always been attracted to leadership positions and always been a musician myself. So I run an orchestra. It's a combination of both. And even as early as high school or middle school, I was drum major of both my middle school and my high school bands. I always loved being a section leader. I joined every club imaginable and really always wanted to be in a leadership position to help shape connection and community wherever I was, and have had a wonderful career up to where I am today, bringing those two things together.
And to be continued for sure. There is no stopping you, Lacey, that's for sure. So during your leadership journey, you've held a variety of different professional roles. And I'd love to know what your favorite has been, not title necessarily, but sort of the part of leadership that brings you the most energy and meaning.
Yes, I think anytime I have the opportunity to bring together people from either different walks of life or different parts of an organization to strategize and solve problems and work together to create change, that is where I am the most energized and the most excited.
Yeah, I definitely can understand that and appreciate that. And along the way, you've had the opportunity to work with some extraordinary individuals, both as colleagues, I presume as mentors as well. Who were some of those most influential people and why were they so influential to you?
Yeah, when I think about this question, I think about the different leaders, whether CEOs or department heads that I had when I was starting my career. And I spent 13 years at one organization. I had 4 different executive directors while I was there. And I remember from the first one to the second one thinking, wow, these two people could not be more different leaders. They must be opposite ends of the spectrum. And then the third one came and I was like, wow, that's really different. How many spectrums are there? And by the fourth one, I realized, I think that the thing I learned from I learned something different from each of them. But the thing I learned from them collectively is that there is no one right way to be a leader, and that there's find the way that your leadership style authentically builds and how you surround yourself with people that complement that style to get all of the work done is, I don't know, the key, I guess.
It's wonderful. It's a great reflection. I love that about the different personalities. And young in your career, you just assume that everyone's cut from the same cloth. So
Right.
it's a great lesson to learn and share with others for sure. Okay, let's think about your own personal leadership philosophy. And I'd love to know like what that is, if there is a particular philosophy that guides you or something that are traits or characteristics or values that you kind of um, really try to stick to as you lead.
It's a really interesting question. I think there are two things that come to mind. One, I learned from a mentor that was not one of those former executive directors, someone that I worked with at an association I was involved with, who talked to me a lot about alignment versus consensus. And I think when you lead a nonprofit, probably when you lead anything, but my familiarity is in the nonprofit art space, that finding those ways to create alignment that can drive you towards the same goal collectively, even if you're driving in different lanes. That's really something that I try to build towards in all of my conversations. And then I think the other thing really that helps lead to that is active listening. And making sure that I'm hearing what is happening from whether it's my employee base or for us, our musicians or our board, and what not only what they're saying, but what it is they're trying to get to, because sometimes those are not the same.
What? What do you mean?
I know, wild.
How could that be? No, I'm kidding. I jest. That's great. Active listening and alignment versus consensus. Two great white paper topics for the new year that I'll be sure to tackle. So thank you for raising those to my consciousness. Okay, so as you know, with each of our nonprofit leader guests, we focus on key elements of nonprofit leadership, right? And for this conversation, Lacey, we're really exploring the topic of leading creative teams, which is absolutely a bit sort of off the beaten path, if you will, in a way, because I don't think a lot of people, maybe who are in a medical setting, really have a deep understanding of what it's like to run an organization with a lot of artists and board members who are artists and people who think they're artists, whatever it is. I can't wait to explore this conversation. So let's jump in because time is, of course, short. And let me start with this question. You lead one of the region's most visible cultural institutions. And I'd love to know what moments or experience have most shaped how you lead creative professionals today.
So I think one of the interesting things about my path is that I've worked in many different markets. And when I think about what an orchestra means in a given city, the work often is the same, but the role can be really quite different. And I think I've seen, if I think back to my time at LA Chamber Orchestra,
Mhm.
for example, we did a community collaborative festival called Lift Every Voice that really brought together different art forms, really important topics that were poignant to the community at the time that we were doing them, and incredible artistic performances. And those combinations, that set of events, along with other things we did throughout that time, really helped me think about how to ground my organization authentically in the community in which we are present, and how we serve that community and how we bring that community together and how we represent that community on stage and around town.
Yeah, it's beautiful. That's interesting. I hadn't anticipated hearing about the uniqueness, let's say, of a community and building. Like I would have just maybe assumed that a symphony orchestra in one city is sort of expecting, or the audience is expecting the same everything in another city. And clearly, I guess that's not the case. No. Okay.
I mean, there
Um,
certainly are some things that people will expect from community to community that are going to look and feel the same, but a lot of things really are very different. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
No, it's good to know. And I suppose that might or should be true for other organizations in other sectors as well. Um, and perhaps is why a lot of people sometimes look inward when they think about hiring from within a community as opposed to pulling talent from outside. But clearly, you've found success in all of these different communities that you've placed yourself, not living there or being from there necessarily. So it is possible to be successful in that way. All right. So next question is, my understanding, creative organizations often live in this tension between artistic ambition and then the financial reality. Tough job that you have to balance those. How do you navigate that balance without sort of diminishing either side?
Yes, I think this really gets to the heart of the work that I do alongside our music director. So at many, although this model is different in different places, but at our orchestra, for example, our music director and myself are partners. We are equals. We each report directly to the board, and our music director is responsible for the artistic output of the organization, and I am responsible for the business output of the organization.
Love it.
But the thing that makes that work well is when our two, going back to this concept of alignment, when our two jobs share a single vision and that we are working together on how to make that a reality, both artistically and financially. Because if you can't have one without the other, you can't be financially successful if you are artistically failing, and you can't be artistically successful if you are financially failing. So, going about these conversations with our artists, with our board, with the orchestra, or with our staff around the balance of these two things in nearly every decision that we make, and in ensuring that we are able to accomplish that experience on stage that we value most, and be able to either turn that into something that is that results financially in either earned or contributed income, or the other way around. So different products are driven by different things, and it's about finding that balance and really working together collectively to make those choices make sense across both sets of decisions.
Yeah, yeah. Even though you have this shared leadership model, which I can see is so valuable, especially the expertise in sort of the music or the artistry that your partner can bring. You have to speak both languages, if I'm not mistaken. You have to sort of understand the artistic and the business perspectives when you're leading a creative organization. And how do you manage that? How do you do that? Is that easy for you?
I can't imagine being in this job and not being able to speak both languages.
Okay.
So, I mean, we talked a little bit about my musical journey, but I started as a musician. I majored in music as an undergrad, but I knew then that I was not going to be a professional musician. And one of the things that I bring to every business decision that I make is the knowledge of how hard it is to be that artist on stage. And I'll use an example from today. We had an event today for our Legacy Society. We had a brass quintet perform there, and that brass quintet, the same brass quintet, had performed last week for a holiday fundraising event that we had, and then this weekend spent 5 performances over 3 days in the Nutcracker. And the 2 brass quintet performances they did on Thursday and on Monday were completely different musical programs. I mean, that takes a great deal of preparation and a great deal of talent and a great deal of knowledge and thoughtfulness. And I know that and can see that in what they're doing. And so can bring that attention also then to the donors and supporters that we have in the room, and talk about how that talent needs to be nurtured and supported, and that how, when we do that, we continue to receive these incredible artistic programs. And so it's that knowledge of both and how to drive the strategy and the business forward while really having that ultimate deep down respect for the artist and the work that they do, I think that makes certainly that makes me successful and makes our organization successful.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's helpful. And we often don't focus on that unique knowledge of the sector of which a CEO lives and operates. So, for example, we don't spend a lot of time talking about the distinctives in an arts organization versus healthcare versus education versus human service, et cetera, right? And all of these executives are extraordinary in many ways because they have this not only the business acumen to lead the business side of the organization, but they also have the knowledge, the intricate knowledge of that particular specialty, if you will. So it's and what I think is very unique from my perspective, and I'm an outsider in many ways, is just how complicated it gets in the arts world because of the very unique personalities that I've experienced in that particular arena. And that's what's always fascinating to me about the world is the different personalities that you find and how you lead very different personalities. But anyway, I digress a little bit. What I want to get back to is how you make decisions when resources are so limited, yet at the same time honoring kind of the artistic integrity, but also balancing that financial responsibility. Like how do you even deal with that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we look at two different perspectives. So our orchestra is a body of union musicians, and they are salaried throughout the year. And so in addition to honoring and respecting the work that they put into their artistry, I also know that they are our greatest asset. And so when we look at how we're utilizing their time, their weeks with us, we look at what things are driving our ticket sales, are driving returning audiences so that they turn into loyal audience and regular buyers and then ultimately donors. We look at what things can drive contributed revenue and what things are driving community impact that can meet the needs of our community, but then also help us drive support from corporations or foundations and all of these different areas of support. So we look at the sort of sometimes purely business aspect of we have this many programs we can do in a week. How are we utilizing them in these three different areas: earned, contributed, and then community impact that also ultimately drives contributed revenue. Mm-hmm. And then as we make artistic decisions and we talk with our artistic team and with our music director, we look at the programs from each of these different angles and look at what is driving new audiences, what is helping us bring return audiences. So there's something either month to month or year to year or quarter to quarter that someone could grasp onto if they were excited by that one program, but might not come to something else. What now would connect back to them in a way that makes sense? And then what is building the artistry and what is, driving our donor base. And so we talk about the art when we're making business decisions, and we talk about business when we're making the artistic decisions.
Right. And it sounds like you've got a pretty sophisticated rubric, decision tree. I don't know. It looks like it would be a very complicated document when you're trying to make sure there are certain checks, boxes checked across all of these things.
Yeah, it's not always quite that formal, but yes, we have a rubric basically that we look at, and we look for balance, and we look across all of those things. And so, yeah.
And there has to be disappointment when certain folks don't get what they want or the level, the degree to which they want it, right? I mean, that's a reality of your role, is having those tough decisions.
Yeah, I think sometimes you have to look at what we can do, what step we can take today so that we can take another step tomorrow. And sometimes that is if there is a big artistic project that our music director is really excited about, but we simply don't yet have the support for it. We can't afford it. It doesn't fit into our rubric for today. That doesn't mean it's no forever.
Okay.
And maybe we look at that project for being 3 years out. And then we talk about how we build to that year on year and what things will make sense so that when we get to that year, we have raised the funds and made the community partners and built that plan around it. And it's the same, it's the same as if you were working with an employee base and they want a really significant raise and you just simply can't do it. And that's not because you don't appreciate their work. Then you look at what are the things we can do and what are the things that would need to be true in order to get us where you want to be at future date, and just building those stepping stones to that place. And I have found that the more that you're able to really authentically talk with whoever that person is, whether it's the artistic committee, the board, a music director, an employee base, to talk through why these decisions are the way they are today and how we move towards a different answer in the future. Or sometimes the answer is just no, and being able to explain what those reasons are and what we can do today to still make those visions some piece of reality.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's just tough. I mean, I have to believe that there is deep passions or passions running very deep and high emotions around certain products that are people of on the artistic side want to make happen. I mean, I can't remember if it was at that era when we were talking about a production that involved a bunch of horses and the extraordinary cost associated with that. And at some point, a person needs to say, yes, we can afford the millions of dollars that it's going to cost to put this on, even though we don't have the guarantees that the gate, will, or the ticket sales will be sufficient. Or we need to take this risk because the organization has to live on the edge. So the risk reward kind of discussions must be fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really true. And you think about, we're an artistic organization, so it is easy to get bogged down in the feelings of fiscal reality. But the truth is that we run on inspiration. That is how we build excitement in our audiences, in our donors, in our staff, in our musicians. And so you have to have that balance of the thing that's pushing you a little bit towards the edge and driving new conversations and making people think, oh, wow, that's happening. That's happening in Richmond, Virginia. Oh, that's happening in my city. And they get excited about it. And then you also have to have, right, it's like peaks and valleys. You also have to have the things that can help sustain you day in and day out. And sometimes that risk, then you just find that balance, right? And so if someone wants to do something that is extremely risky or extremely expensive, or we just don't know if the audience is there, then we find the way to commit to that is a financial possibility,
Yep.
but then balance it with something else that is a more known quantity, the next month or something. So you've got that push and pull of the new and exciting and the sort of traditional and known quantity that will do something else that you need.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. It's interesting to think about how the symphony actually lives out beyond the concert hall into the community. And how do you think about the symphony's role in the broader Richmond community, especially for audiences who may not see themselves as traditional patrons of classical music, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is one of the most critical things we can do in our industry because and when I think about how we build community engagement or community connection, I think this is important when we are outside of the concert hall and when we are inside of the concert hall. And because so many people, there's been a long history in the orchestral industry of thinking about an orchestra as that thing that I don't do. That thing I'm excited that's here, but it's for someone else.
Yeah, that's good.
And we can't build an audience on that. And so connecting with people where they are. And that might mean being at a concert in a park that's free, where people can bring their kids and allow them to be themselves, and they run around and they don't have to worry about them making noise or, being afraid of clapping at the wrong time or whatever thing is keeping someone from entering a concert
Dressed in a
experience.
tuxedo or whatever.
Right. Yes, exactly. What do I wear? Such a common question. Wear whatever you want. You want to be on a beautiful date night out, go do that. You want to be comfy, do that.
Right.
We love it. But even in the concert hall, then having that balance of programs. So we work with, and I would say too, no matter what we're doing, whether we're doing our symphonic programming, our pops programming, our community programming, we really try to be collaborative and a community partner in each phase. So if we look at our pops programming, we will at least once or twice a year work with a local band and create an orchestral track to their music and have them perform alongside us. We work with them together here. And that helps us build audiences. It brings people in that know that band but don't know the symphony, helps them see the different things the symphony can do. It also helps us build the sort of artistic output of our community and highlight local artists, which we love. We do the same thing in our symphonic programming. We've been commissioning new works for the orchestra that tell Virginia stories and lift Virginia voices. So whether we're working with local composers to tell local stories, we had a work from a composer born in Richmond that highlighted the work of our local poet laureate and talked about the city. We had a work that was written to honor Arthur Ashe, who was born in Richmond and has an incredible story to tell. We co-commissioned an opera, Loving v. Virginia, from a Richmond-born composer that we premiered last year on the incredible Supreme Court case that decriminalized interracial marriage. And that family, that's such a Virginia, Richmond region, central Virginia story. And, now we're working on a commission this spring that talks about a Virginia-born astronaut who also played in the NFL, because somebody should have that many talents in life. It's amazing. Such a great story. And just each of those things helps bring a new connection to community members, something that they find familiar, and then they get more and more connected with the symphony. But we're also reflecting that back, because ultimately we are here to take community resources and turn them into community impact. And so how we do that is critical.
That's a very good quote right there. I'm going to have to pull that one out. Very good. But speaking of community, how do you get community voices sort of involved in the creative spaces without diluting the artistic vision you have or overwhelming the organization?
Yes, that can be really tricky, I think. And again, it's finding those special projects where that community connection drives something new. And, the Loving v. Virginia was a great example of this, both in when we brought in a composer that is from the Richmond region originally, but now lives in Chicago. But we were able to create community conversations around the work. We were able to bring in partners from the Black History Museum and Cultural Center Virginia to create lobby displays that talked about the path of this civil rights movement and where it fit within that, and other things that had happened in Richmond. We were able to go into community spaces and present chamber music or legal talks about the work. So all of these collaborative ways of building to the program, while community members were not necessarily informing the work, though we did actually have a commissioning. You could follow the commission along the way and ask questions. And some of those questions and conversations from a libretto workshop or a composition workshop may have in some small way shaped the artistic work in the end, but not like, you should really make that an A and not an E, or like, you should really take this piece faster instead of slower. Not in that kind of way, but just more in a thought-provoking way. And then we have programs where we collaborate a lot more directly. So this fall, we did a collaboration with a local theater company to bring Rocky Horror Show, the live version, not the movie version, to stage with a new orchestral arrangement And, that local theater company then was a collaborative artistic voice in the final product. Right. So there's a balance in a myriad of ways of how you bring community members in to a creative conversation, but still build and ensure that you have the artistic output you're looking for as an organization.
Yeah, that's great. And interestingly, what I think a lot of arts organizations do that is hearing community voices, which wouldn't necessarily be interpreted in this way, is with the youth of the community, bringing school-age children into the different programs. I mean, so many arts organizations have very strong third grade programs, fourth grade program, fifth grade, whatever it might be. And in some ways, those are memorable, not only for the youth, but the parents get to hear about it as well. So, and you probably get to hear from the kids what they like and what they don't as well. So
absolutely. Yeah, I think my education team would be wildly irritated with me right now for not bringing that up already. But we have, in a totally different capacity from what I was talking about, we have a youth orchestra program with 200 participants, 5 different ensembles from beginner to advanced. And this also is a place where we create collaboration between the youth programs and our professional orchestra, where we will bring those students to rehearsals so they have an opportunity to hear the professional orchestra rehearse and connect with some of the artists. Our music director does a conducting workshop with a subset of that group. Some of the time, we connect them to composers, and it's one of the ways that we are able to build relationships with the students, their teachers, their parents, and of course the other wide varieties of programs in schools or programs where we bring kids in to the concert hall as well. So all of those things, and it's a wild tapestry of programmatic needs that we're trying to meet all of the time. But all of it is necessary together in order to make the whole really work.
Yeah. Well, suffice it to say, you're kind of extending yourself to the very broadest reaches of the Richmond community, which is really exciting. So switching gears just a little bit, I think that in creative environments, there are these strong opinions that mean people are passionate. And, the question is, how do you build alignment around direction and values without requiring full consensus on every decision? Is this going back to that alignment versus consensus discussion we were having earlier?
Yeah, I think definitely, because the reality is that in the end, everyone might not agree that this is that step one in the process is the thing we should focus on first. But that doesn't mean they can't understand why or be on board with making that step first. I think, anytime you're with artists, and generally speaking in our industry, all the administrators are artists as well. We all think of ourselves as artists. We started that way, and we're here because we love the art form,
yeah, right.
Even if we're not actively doing it now. And board members, the same way. Everybody's got very strong opinions, and everybody really likes to share them. And right. That's great, because that's how we come to exciting new ideas. But it is really important to be able to balance those, to be able to hear all the really exciting ideas and to take them in without judgments and filters. I think if you're, it's so easy to say, no, we can't do that, or we can't afford that, or we can't, not right now, or maybe we'll talk about that later. But being able to take the opportunities to hear all of the thoughts when you're in that brainstorming space, and carving out where the brainstorming space is and where the now we're working the work plan space is, I think is also really important. So when you're in that brainstorming space, being able to take that step back and really just hear all the ideas, because you never know when something is going to spark a new program or a change in a program. And so being able to listen really without filter, I think, is critical. And then being able to, again, plot out, make sure we are all aware of the organizational priorities and goals and values, so that if everyone's working off the same worksheet, then we can often get to a closer end goal together, as opposed to everybody working off their own values. So that's, I think, really important to set that baseline for any decision-making conversation. And then again, working those, what is the thing we can build to today so that we can build to something else tomorrow is a really important piece of how we approach those big ideas. Because so often the big ideas are great and are achievable. They just might not be achievable right this second, and they might not need to be achievable right this second. I think the other really important thing when you're looking at big, new, exciting ideas is to be able to balance them with your whatever your people resources are, your administrative resources.
Yeah, right.
Because if you're going to do something new, you might need to take something old off the table so that it's not, you can't just add and add and add forever, or you'll wear your people out. I think those things also are important. Your financial assets are one thing, but then your people resources also are important to keep in mind.
Yeah, I have to believe that it's hard for people to understand the connection between ideas or implementation of ideas and the human power that's required in terms of hours to make something like that happen. And then the further connection between those two things and money, the actual dollars required that haven't been budgeted to do something like that. So I suppose that's the comeback for you as a leader is that's great. I love that idea. So let's think about this for a minute and translate the idea into execution and the steps and the requirements in terms of people and cost. And let's see if we can manage those resources, right? And then all of a sudden it becomes very aware to everyone that that's another $1.5 million or whatever it is. And,
Right.
and when you ask the question, like, okay, so what can we cut?
Right. That's right. Yep, exactly. That's right.
And you go back and say, well, do you want to cut your favorite program? No,
Oh, no,
I
not
wasn't
that, not that.
suggesting that at all. Yeah, interesting. Well, so there is healthy conflict or healthy disagreement, right? And I imagine it's impossible to prevent some sort of conflict, but how do you keep it from sort of becoming personal or becoming paralyzing?
Yeah. So I personally am a solid proponent of healthy conflict. I really love, like when I'm working with my leadership team, I always talk with them that when we are in when we're in that brainstorming or when we're working through a problem space, or anytime there's something they need to talk about, that I want people to be open and honest and disagree with me if they think we're going down a wrong road, or we could look at this a different way, maybe. And that sort of, in our conversations one-on-one or as a leadership team, that sort of discussion is how we get to better decision making. But again, bringing back the alignment thing, then once we get outside the door, we have to be on the same page about how we're moving this thing forward. But I really think that, especially in a creative industry, I think this is true in any industry, but when your industry is really focused on creativity, that working through those challenges and the different ideas and the conflict that can arise and not being afraid to, you don't have to, keeping the conflict focused on the work also is important. So it doesn't become about people. We're not trying to disagree with each other in a way that is hurtful or harmful. We're really looking for the best way forward as a team or as an organization to get to our shared goals, that shared understanding of the end. And the only way to do that is through conflict, because I have lots of ideas. It doesn't mean they're all good.
Right.
Most of them are good, but sometimes they're not all good. And also they can't all be done today. So always having that space for not right now, or this is too much, or maybe we could look at it this way, gets us to a better answer faster.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, it is so helpful in the nonprofit world to have a mission, or the vision, which can always bring you back to a North Star, which doesn't always exist in the for-profit world, where it quite literally is often an individual's financial gain that is most important. So
Right.
it's nice to be able to not focus on the personal, but focus on the mission of the organization. So helpful. Um, how does clarity, how does communication function as a tool for you in sort of guiding these highly skilled and independently minded professionals?
Yeah, I think that communication, for me, transparent communication is critical at every level of the organization. It's also very hard to achieve really consistent, transparent communication because it takes time and it takes energy. And sometimes I often don't feel like I have either. And so m- making that time,
Yeah.
right? Making that time and finding those places where where the clarity drives the communication, where I know this is the thing that we need to get behind as a team or as a company or as a board this week. And for me, I think it's about making sure I am communicating around priorities and not just around everything. Because as some of the what we've talked about here, we do a lot of things. There is
Right.
everything to talk about all of the time.
And too
Uh,
many to forget because there's so many things.
right. Yeah, exactly. And so if I am communicating, so if I'm doing a written communication, for me, clarity is often around what one person, even if I'm sending it to a lot of people, what one person am I communicating to through this medium? Who am I writing to? And what do I need them to know? Because if I try to write to everyone on my board at the same time, they all need different things.
Yeah.
And I just can't do that. And so, really, communicating to a single person often for me is the way to get to the priority of the thing I need to be communicating. So it's not just.
And that person you're picking is probably someone that is not in a single lane. They're probably someone that has a variety of stakes in the organization or is more connected to a variety of things rather than only one of your many different channels, right?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it also depends on what, there are different things that different needs at different times. So for example, I do a monthly communication that goes out to both my boards. I have the symphony board, I have a foundation board, my full staff and my full administrative staff and my musician employee base.
Hmm.
And that's a wide group of constituents. And so sometimes I need to communicate around a challenge. Sometimes I'm communicating around an opportunity. Sometimes I am talking to a set of potential game-changing donors that fall into that category and communicating my message in that way. And so it just, even though I'm doing a wide variety of things and communicating to a lot of people in that moment, my voice holds a different weight than a lot of other voices. And how I communicate through these different mediums, or if I am speaking to the employees at a staff meeting or to the board at a board meeting, really being able to focus in on what the point of what I'm trying to drive is. So I'm not just talking for no reason, but also being as clear and transparent about what it is. So if there's a challenge financially, I've got to lay that out very clearly. And I need to lay it out clearly to everybody because it probably will take the musicians, the staff, and the
Mhm.
board to be on the same page to fix that problem. If they don't know what the problem is, they can't be a part of helping fix it.
Yeah.
Um, so, anyways, I think those are the things that.
Yeah, that's great. And it was interesting for me to internalize the different audiences that you have. You laid out a number of the core audiences that you feel most responsible for communicating with. And then I was thinking about, from a fundraising perspective, all of the
Oh, yeah.
constituencies that you choose to connect with because you want their engagement, you want their support, and then all of a sudden you have so many more audiences. But fortunately, you have others that can help you communicate to those. But I love the focus on the core stakeholders, those four groups that you have. So helpful.
Yeah. I guess the one thing I would add to what I've said already in this space, especially if I'm looking at fundraising, but also in the other scenarios, is still again coming back to that balance between artistry and business and making sure that I'm sharing the artistic impact or the community impact we're seeing
Right.
and why it matters and what it takes to make that happen. I think one of the things that your average attendee at an orchestra concert, whether that person is a subscriber, a ticket buyer, a donor, hopefully not a board member, but you never know, doesn't realize is that that group of musicians on stage, this is their job. This is their all day, everyday job. They're not lawyers in the daytime and then come here and play for fun in the evening, you know, and what it takes to really maintain that talent and that ability to come together for 3-4 rehearsals and do a concert is the consistency and the constantness of that, and that to make it exciting we have to be able to fund all of it, not just one piece of it. And that often surprises people, I think, and makes them think about the symphony in a different capacity, in a different light.
Right. Well, I mean, we have that tension anytime we talk about donors. They want to fund the program. Okay, great. Let's fund the program. In your example, it's that concert that people are experiencing. But if you back up, you don't have the practices, you don't have the facilities, you don't have the air conditioning, you don't have
Right.
upholstered seats. Whatever it is, like there's just so many things that go into the ability to create that one experience for that one person. And it's hard for them to think about all of those requirements because they just want to experience the end product, right? And
Right.
I think about, a movie ticket. When I go to a movie theater, for example, I spend my whatever. I don't even want to say an amount because it's probably not enough. But I'm thinking about the experience in that moment and not every single little thing that, helped create the magic of that moment.
Right. And that is what you want when someone goes to a movie or comes to a concert, right? I don't want them in that moment. I just want them to have that experience, to have that emotional connection, that ignition of whether the joy or the sadness or the power of whatever is happening in that performance experience. But when I'm fundraising, I need to think about everything that made that exciting moment happen, because you can't have that moment all by itself.
Exactly.
It doesn't exist like that.
It's probably why you don't hear a lot of those messages standing up from the stage about how challenging and intricate and important and every step is. It's got to be about the magic of the moment and find the separate time. That's great. It's great, good advice, and yet it is necessary to help people, pull people back and help them understand the full picture. So, well, as we wrap up today's conversation, just a couple of closing questions. For leaders managing creative teams in any sector, like what's one leadership mindset shift that would be most helpful to improve how they lead going forward?
I think that you have to find a balance of systems and processes that can help move things forward, but also the space to actually bring that creative brain forward. Because if you're if you came into a business based on creativity and you don't get to experience that creativity on some level of regularity, then a little piece of that joy diminishes and your effectiveness isn't going to be as good anymore. And eventually you probably will lose them. So making sure that you've got that balance for your employee base and for yourself, I think, is really critical to be able to get it done. You can get bogged down in the spreadsheets, and I love a good spreadsheet. Sometimes you've got to take the time to think past that into that creative space.
I love that. And I think it speaks to the importance of managers and leaders knowing the why behind why someone joined an organization or is working at that organization. So you can assume that if they're in finance, that they know how to do their job, or at least they're capable of doing their job. But why did they come to the symphony to do finance? So knowing things like that would be helpful to giving them maybe a little more of a experience that they're going to appreciate and enjoy beyond just doing the work. So that's
right.
Great advice.
Anyone in a nonprofit space needs that moment to connect back to the mission so they can see and be a part of the thing they're working so hard to support.
Yeah, amen. I mean, I talk about creating the mission moments for board members who be so disconnected, but it's a cautionary tale. But employees can be disconnected to the mission too, unless
absolutely
you're thinking about that. So thank you for bringing that point forward. Last question. What continues to inspire you about leading a creative organization, even when the work is so hard?
I think for me, it's always the people. It's always about the people. Working with a great team with great ideas, being able to support and connect with incredible artists and musicians, incredibly engaged board members who are so supportive and wonderful. And then for me, the result of the audiences, no matter where we are, and seeing their reactions to a performance and having that, because that for me, I think is the impact, that real-time response to the art, or to the park concert, or to the educational experience, or seeing what the kids in the youth orchestra are doing today, or whatever it is, that real-time response provides the motivation for me, I think, to keep moving and working with a great team to get that moving forward. I don't know, makes my day. That's the best part.
Yeah, I get it. And it must be nice to always be able to find a seat at a concert or a performance of the Nutcracker to re-engage your, appreciation for the art and the work. So that's just so wonderful. Well, Lacey, thank you so much for helping us explore this important area of nonprofit leadership and personal development, really. Unfortunately, we're at the end of today's session, but you've created a very special treat for the audience, and I'm grateful to you. And if you've liked the content, which I can't imagine that you didn't, I'd love for you to like and follow the show. This has been Lead for Good. We have 2 other podcasts, Mastering Fundraising and The Nonprofit Edge. In each of these podcasts, we meet with extraordinary nonprofit leaders and really dig into their expertise in an effort to learn from them. So check those out. But until next time, we want to wish you all the best and encourage you all to do what you can for this world by leading for good. Thanks all. All right. Thank you, Lacey. And look at that,
Yeah.
1:59 on my clock, 4:59 on yours.
Nice.
You will not be late for your next Zoom meeting.
I love it.
Yeah. The only thing I have to fix is when my daughter walked behind me to get to the stapler. And I was like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? I can't believe, where is your EQ here? Where is your...
Always something.
Oh my gosh. So
at least she had, clothes on. So
I know, right? Exactly. So I'm gonna have a talk with her. Now, in fairness, my door was not closed, so I guess that means if the door's not closed, it's open for business.
Come on in, yeah.
Yeah, and she's focused on schoolwork and whatnot. But I think what you'll find is if you watch the YouTube, you will see a Fulcrum logo come up. Those 5 seconds. Now the good thing is on audio, you don't know at all.
That's right.
I will have to create a little bit of a picture over video in that section, just because I don't want to get emails or texts from my friends who are like, "Hey, I saw your daughter. You want to be a little less professional there, buddy?" Anyway, I had a great time. It was so fun to learn from you during the session. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was really fun.
Yeah. Well, good luck with the rest of the year. I'll leave you alone, but in 2026, I'll definitely come calling again.
Sounds good.
All right. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this most recent episode of Lead for Good. Our passion is helping nonprofit leaders reach their full potential as leaders, and we sincerely hope this episode has been edifying for you. Please subscribe to this podcast to not miss any of our Lead for Good conversations. We welcome your feedback, suggestions, and comments via email at hello@fulcrumleader.com. Lead for Good is a production of Fulcrum Nonprofit Leadership. Please visit us on the web at www.fulcrumleader.com. Until next time, we wish you all the best and encourage you to always lead for good.